The phone slipped from my hands when I heard my own daughter Emily say those words that broke my soul in half. Of course, I'm not going to invite my mother. Imagine what an embarrassment she would be in front of Adrian's family. Her voice sounded so cold, so calculating, as if she were talking about discarding an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful to her. I stood there in the hallway of my own house with the receiver on the floor and my heart beating so fast I thought it was going to explode. 64 years of life, 8 years a widow, and 38 years being a mother to that creature, only to discover that she considered me an embarrassment. The conversation continued on the other side of the line. Emily was talking to someone, probably Sarah, my daughter-in-law, that wannabe influencer who lives posting photos of the house I bought for my son Michael. You know how Mom is. George is going to think we are a family of, well, you understand. Adrian is already doing enough by accepting where we come from. Where we come from. Had she forgotten that thanks to where we come from, she was able to study architecture at the most expensive university in the country? Had she forgotten that thanks to my hard work waking up at 5 a.m. for decades to build my small real estate empire, she can now afford the luxury of being selective with her clients? My legs trembled and I had to lean against the wall. The wallpaper that Emily had chosen last year when she said, "Redecorate your house, Mom, so it looks more modern." Now it seemed like a mockery. Everything in this house screamed of the money I had earned with my own hands. The same money she spent as if it were water. Besides, you know, Mom will not know how to behave. She will arrive in one of those horrible dresses she buys at the market. She will talk too loud. She will tell embarrassing stories from when we were kids. Emily let out a nervous little laugh that froze my blood. Adrian's family is very refined. His brother George is a diplomat. His mother was a beauty queen in the 80s. Can you imagine my mom trying to converse with those people? The receiver was still on the floor, but I could no longer move. Each word was like a dagger straight to the chest. This was the same girl who used to crawl into my bed when she had nightmares. The same one who hugged me crying when other girls made fun of her worn-out shoes. The same one who swore to me that when she grew up, she would take care of me forever. Michael agrees with me, continued Emily. He also thinks it is better if Mom does not go. It will be weird enough explaining why Dad is not there. We do not need more drama. Michael, my baby, the son I carried in my arms for his first 2 years because he was so sickly. The same one for whom I paid for law school and bought his first apartment when he married Sarah. Both of them, my 2 children, had decided that I was an embarrassment. Emily's laugh resonated through the empty house. The best part is that she will not even notice. Lately, she is so absent-minded, so you know, old. She probably will not even remember there is a wedding. That was when something inside me broke definitively. It was not just the exclusion. It was not just the shame. It was the underestimation. They thought I was a foolish, senile old woman they could manipulate at will. But they did not know who they were messing with. I was not the absent-minded old lady they believed. I was Julia Morris, the woman who had turned a small loan of $5,000 into a real estate empire of 20 properties. The same woman who had raised 2 children alone after their father died, working 18 hours a day so they would never lack anything. I hung up the phone carefully, as if it were made of glass. My mind was already working at full speed. Like in the old days when I had to solve financial crises or negotiate with builders who thought they could cheat me for being a woman, I had learned a long time ago that revenge is a dish served cold, and that patience is the most powerful weapon an intelligent woman can have. I headed to my study. That small sanctuary full of filing cabinets and contracts that my children had always avoided as if it were radioactive. Mom's boring papers, Emily used to say when she was little. How ironic that those boring papers were exactly what had financed her luxuries all her life. I turned on the computer and started reviewing all the transfers I had made in the last 5 years. Emily luxury condo, downtown,
$400,000. Michael House in the Hills, $600,000. Emily again, BMW car, $80,000. Michael wedding expenses with Sarah, $50,000. Emily master's degree in Europe, $100,000.
The list was endless. Each transfer had a sweet and manipulative justification.
Mom, it is an investment for my future. It is just that Sarah is pregnant and we need more space. It is only a loan. I will pay you back in 6 months. Loans that were never repaid. Investments that only benefited them. As I reviewed the numbers, I remembered perfectly how it all started. It was 3 years after the death of Robert, my husband. I was devastated, lost, trying to navigate the world alone for the first time in my life. Emily had come home with tears in her eyes. Mom, I was offered an incredible job opportunity, but I need to look more professional. Could you help me with a small loan to renew my wardrobe? Small loan, $10,000 for clothes. But I had said yes because seeing her cry destroyed me, because I wanted her to have all the opportunities I never had. That had been my first mistake, confusing love with money. Then it had been Michael. Mom, Sarah, and I want to start a family, but this apartment is too small.
Could you help us with the down payment? Only the down payment. We will pay the rest. Of course. 6 months later, they came back. The monthly payments are too high, and Sarah had to stop working because of the pregnancy. In the end, I ended up paying for the whole house. The pattern had always been the same. They arrived with a sad story, an urgent need, a promise of independence. This is the last time, Mom. After this, we will not bother you anymore. It is just until we stabilize. Sweet lies wrapped in kisses on the cheek and calculated hugs. But I had been stupid.
I had confused their need for my money with true love. I had believed I was a generous mother, when in reality, I was an emotional ATM. They came, pushed the right buttons, and I spit out bills. The most painful revelation came when I found the credit card statements I had put in their names. Emily had spent $10,000 last month. Michael, $8,000 in expensive restaurants, designer clothes, weekend trips. They lived like millionaires with my money while I kept buying my clothes at the market and cooking at home to save. The phone rang. It was Emily. "Hi, Mom. How are you?" Her voice was now honeyed affectionate, completely different from the one she had used an hour earlier to talk about me as if I were a nuisance. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come over tomorrow? It is about the wedding." "Of course, my love. I will be there tomorrow," I replied with the sweetest voice I could fake, but inside a cold smile was drawing on my lips. I knew exactly what Emily wanted to discuss with me. It was not my presence at her wedding, but my money to finance it. That night, I could not sleep. I stayed awake until 3 o'clock in the morning, reviewing every document, every contract, every bank transfer. My brain worked like a calculating machine, adding up years of misinterpreted generosity and unrequited love, but also planning. Because if I had learned anything in my decades as a businesswoman, it was that information is power, and I had a lot of information. The next day, I arrived at Emily's house exactly at 10 o'clock in the morning, as we had agreed. I wore my simplest dress, the one she hated so much, and my worn faux leather purse. I wanted to look exactly like the harmless old lady they thought I was. Emily received me with a hug that smelled of expensive perfume and lies. "Mom, it is so good you came. Sit down, I made you coffee." She served me in one of the fine porcelain cups I had given her for her birthday. Part of a set that cost more than a secretary's monthly salary. Everything in her house screamed luxury. The Italian furniture, the giant screen TV, the artwork decorating the walls, my money converted into objects to impress strangers. "Look, Mom, I wanted to talk to you about the wedding." Emily sat across from me, crossing her legs with studied elegance. "You know, Adrian and I want something very special, very elegant. His family is very distinguished." There was that word again, distinguished, as if I were a second-ass product that needed to be hidden so as not to ruin her premium image. I nodded, pretending the silly smile she expected from me. "The problem is that costs have skyrocketed much more than we thought. The venue we wanted costs $40,000 just for the rent. Then there is the food, the flowers, the music, the photographer." Emily made a dramatic pause as if the numbers overwhelmed her terribly. "In total, we are talking about almost $150,000. $150,000. It was more money than many families see in years." Emily said it as if it were a reasonable amount for a 6-hour party. I took a sip of coffee and kept my expression neutral. "Adrian has put his part. Of course, his family is also contributing, but we need another calculated pause. We need you to cover the difference. It is about $80,000. $80,000, said. Just like that, casually.
like someone borrowing $20 for the bus. Emily played with her engagement ring while she spoke. That nervous gesture she had since she was a child when she lied because she was lying. I knew perfectly well that Adrian's family had not contributed a cent. I knew because I had investigated. I know it is a lot of money, Mom, but think of it as an investment in my future. Adrian has very important contacts. This marriage can open many doors for my career. Besides, her voice became sweet, manipulative. It is going to be the last big favor I ask of you. After this, we are going to be completely independent. The last time. How many times had I heard that phrase? It was like a broken record that repeated every time they needed money. The last time I bother you, Mom. After this, we will not need anything. It is the last investment in our future. Lies that I had swallowed again and again, like a fool in love with the illusion of being needed. And Mom. Emily leaned forward, taking my hands in hers, which were perfectly manicured. I know we have not officially invited you yet, but it is because we want to surprise you. The truth is, we are planning something very intimate, very family-oriented. Only the closest people, more lies. I had seen the guest list lying on her coffee table. 250 people, politicians, businessmen, influencers, all the important people Emily needed to build her image of a successful woman. But her own mother was not on that list. I just need you to confirm the money so I can reserve everything. The vendors are waiting. Emily squeezed my hands, pretending vulnerability. I trust you, Mom. You have always been there for me. I had always been there to pay for her whims, to finance her dreams, to clean up her financial disasters. But when I needed emotional support, when I felt alone after Robert's death, when Sundays became eternal in this empty house, they were not there. Of course, my love, I replied with the same maternal smile I had perfected over the years. You know, I will always support you in everything. Emily sighed with relief, as if she had been holding her breath. She had no idea that I already knew the whole truth. You are the best mom in the world, she told me, kissing my cheek with those lips that tasted of falsehood. I promise this wedding is going to be perfect. Adrian is so grateful to you always. He talks about how lucky he is to have such a generous mother-in-law. Adrian, the perfect groom, who had
never directed more than 5 words in a row to me in the years he had been dating Emily. The same one who got uncomfortable every time I came to visit them, as if my presence contaminated the sophisticated atmosphere they had created.
But of course, my money did not contaminate it that they received with open arms. When I left Emily's house, I drove directly to William's office, my accountant and one of the few true friends I had left. William had been Robert's right hand in the business, and after his death, he had become my most trusted advisor. He was one of the few men I knew who did not underestimate me for being a woman. Julia, what a surprise to see you here. Is everything okay? William got up from his desk with a genuine smile,
one of those I no longer received at home. His office smelled of coffee and old papers, a scent that calmed me because it reminded me of the time when Robert and I built our empire together. "William, I need you to do me a very special favor. I want to review exactly how much money I have transferred to my children in the last 5 years. Everything down to the last dollar." I sat across from his desk, crossing my hands on my lap, like the executive I had been for decades. William frowned. "Are you sure those numbers can be shocking?" He knew my family well. He had been a silent witness to all their requests for money, all their financial emergencies that invariably became my responsibility. "I am more than sure. I want exact numbers, dates, concepts, and I want you to tell me what my real asset situation is if I stop supporting them financially." My voice was firm, businesslike. It had been years since I heard myself speak like that. William worked for 2 hours typing numbers, reviewing transfers, calculating totals. I sat there, watching how the years of my generosity turned into cold and brutal figures. When he finished, he handed me a sheet with numbers that took my breath away. "In 5 years, Julia, you have transferred $2.8 million to Emily and Michael. That is without counting the properties you have put in their names, the credit cards you pay monthly, and the life insurance policies of which they are beneficiaries." William looked at me with a mixture of compassion and admiration. "You're an incredibly generous woman." Generous? What a nice word to describe what had actually been my systematic stupidity. $2.8 million. It was more money than most people earn in their entire productive life. And I had given it away to 2 people who considered me an embarrassment. "Now tell me, William, if I completely cut off financial support, how long do you think they could sustain themselves alone?" It was a rhetorical question. We both knew the answer. Emily spends more than she earns every month. Her job as an architect allows her to live modestly, but not for the lifestyle she leads. Michael is better off, but the mortgage on the house. Sarah's expenses, the luxuries, I would say maximum 3 months before they are in serious trouble. 3 months. All their arrogance, all their shame towards me, all their supposed independence, it would collapse in 3 months without my money. It was valuable information, but also devastating. I had created 2 financial monsters who did not know how to live without sucking my bank account dry. That night, alone in my house, I made a decision that would change everything. I poured myself a glass of wine, the expensive wine Emily had given me for my birthday, paid for with my money, of course. And I sat in my favorite armchair, the same armchair where Robert used to read the financial news aloud to me, where we had planned every investment, every strategic move of our business. I took out my phone and dialed George's number, Adrian's brother. I had investigated enough to know that he was a diplomat, a serious and respectable person. If Emily was so ashamed of me, it was time for him to know exactly who was the woman financing his brother's wedding. "Good evening, George. This is Julia Morris, Emily's mother.
Excuse me for calling so late, but I need to talk to you about something very important regarding your brother's wedding. George's voice sounded surprised but polite. Of course, Mrs. Morris, tell me how I can help you. George, I need to clarify some things about the wedding expenses. My daughter told me that your family is contributing financially, but I think there is a misunderstanding. I want to make sure we are all on the same page. My voice sounded sweet, innocent, like that of a confused old lady who just wanted to avoid trouble. There was a long pause on the other side of the line. Mrs. Morris, I am afraid I do not understand. We have not agreed to any financial contribution. Adrian told us that you and Emily had everything covered. His voice betrayed genuine confusion. Perfect. Emily had lied about that too. Oh, how strange. Well, do not worry, George. I will take care of all the expenses as always. I let that last phrase hang in the air like an accidental confession, as always. George now sounded intrigued. Excuse my curiosity, Mrs. Morris, but have you been financing Emily for a long time? There was my opportunity. Well, a mother does what she has to do for her children, right? Emily has had some financial challenges, her apartment, her car, her studies in Europe. We have handled all that as a family. I made a calculated pause. But do not worry, I have enough properties to cover any expense. Properties? That word always caught people's attention. George was a diplomat. He knew the value of real estate. How generous you are, Mrs. Morris. Adrian never mentioned that Emily had financial needs. Oh, Emily is very proud. She does not like people to know she depends on her mother. But between us, George, she could not maintain her lifestyle without my help. Every word was a time bomb that Emily would not see coming. After hanging up, I dialed Michael's number. It was time to test the loyalty of my younger son, the one who had always been weaker, more manipulable than Emily. If there was any chance that one of my children was salvageable, it was him. Hi, Mom. Is everything okay? It is very late. Michael's voice sounded sleepy, but also nervous. Emily had probably already told him about our conversation regarding the money. Michael, my love, I need to talk to you about something very serious. It is about your sister's wedding. I settled into the armchair, preparing for the performance of my life. Emily asked me for money for the wedding, a lot of money, but there is something that has me worried. What is it? Mom? Now, Michael sounded completely awake. Well, lately I have been thinking a lot about my future, about what will happen to me when I'm older. You have your own lives, your own families. I let my voice break slightly, as if it were a painful confession. Mom, what are you talking about? You are perfectly fine. But I could hear the discomfort in his voice. Michael knew exactly where this conversation was going. Yes, now I am fine. But what will happen in 5 years? In 10, I do not want to be a burden to you. I made a dramatic pause. I have been thinking about selling some properties and moving to a smaller place, something I can handle alone.
The silence on the other side of the line was deafening. Michael was calculating. If I sold the properties, moved, became independent, his source of extra income would end. The houses he expected to inherit, the loans he never repaid, the financial cushion I represented. Mom, do not say those things. We are never going to abandon you. You are part of our family. Sweet lies wrapped in poorly disguised panic. Oh, Michael, it is so good to hear that, because the truth is, sometimes I feel like I am in the way. Like with Emily's wedding. I left the sentence incomplete, waiting for his reaction. What about Emily's wedding? Michael tried to sound casual, but I knew that voice. It was the same one he used when he was a boy and had broken something. Well, Emily told me they are going to do something very intimate, very small. Only the most important people. And I understand, at my age I no longer fit into those elegant celebrations. My voice was pure maternal manipulation, mixing resignation with a pinch of martyrdom. Michael swallowed audibly. Mom, I did not know Emily had told you that. There must be a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, my love. Emily was very clear. She says Adrian's family is very distinguished, very refined, and I am just an old woman who does not know how to behave in society. Every word was a dagger straight to his conscience. Mom, that is not true. You are... Michael stopped. He could not complete the sentence without lying blatantly, and we both knew it. It is okay, Michael. I understand perfectly. You have grown up. You have climbed socially. It is natural to be ashamed of your mother who comes from the market. I made a long pause. I just hope that when I move and sell everything, you understand. It was because I wanted to give you space to shine without my shadow. The line remained silent for almost a minute. Michael was processing the implications of my words. If I moved, if I sold the properties, if I became independent, they would have to learn to live with their own resources. Mom, do not make hasty decisions. Let me talk to Emily. There must be a very big misunderstanding. Michael's voice trembled slightly. I could hear Sarah in the background asking what was happening, her voice shrill and worried. I promise we are going to fix this. I do not want you to fight because of me, my love. If Emily thinks it is better for me not to go, I respect her decision. After all, it is her special day. My voice was pure maternal resignation, but inside, I was smiling. Michael was panicking, and that meant my plan was working. Mom, we never wanted to hurt you. Let me talk to Emily tomorrow morning. Do not do anything until we talk. Okay. Now, Michael sounded desperate. Okay, my love, but I already made an important decision today. I told Emily that I am going to give her the money for her wedding. $8,000 will be my farewell gift before simplifying my life. The lie slipped from my lips like poisonous honey. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael was processing that Emily had asked for $80,000 while excluding him from the conversation. The siblings had always competed for my money, but they had learned to coordinate to maximize their gains.
This broke their alliance. $80,000. Emily asked you for that much money. Michael's voice had changed. Now there was a note of betrayal in it. Yes. For the venue, the food, the flowers. She says it is going to be a very elegant wedding. I suppose since you are already married, you do not need anything, right? Another calculated lie. Michael and Sarah were always asking for money for something. Renovations, the house vacations, Sarah's new car. Mom, we also have expenses. Sarah is pregnant again, and we are going to need to expand the house. Michael took the bait perfectly. Sarah is pregnant. What wonderful news. I feigned surprise and joy, even though I knew perfectly well it was a lie. Sarah had posted photos drinking wine on her social media last week. Of course, I will help you with that too. After all, you do include me in your lives. That last phrase was the final blow. Michael understood the message perfectly. Emily received money but excluded me. He included me but received nothing. It was an equation that did not suit him at all. I hung up the phone feeling a satisfaction I had not experienced in years. For the first time in a long time, I had control of the situation. My children were used to manipulating me, but they had forgotten that I had been a businesswoman long before being a mother. I knew all the negotiation tactics, all the pressure strategies. The next day, early in the morning, the show began. Emily called me hysterical at 7 in the morning. Mom, what did you tell Michael? He is furious with me. He says I'm selfish, that I am excluding him from everything. Good morning, my love. I do not understand why Michael is upset. I only told him about your wedding, about how nice it is going to be. My voice was that of an innocent old lady who does not understand why everyone is shouting. You told him I asked you for $80,000 and that I am excluding him from the marriage. Emily was losing control, something very rare for her. She had always been calculating cold. Well, it is the truth, isn't it? You asked me for that money yesterday. I made an innocent pause. And about Michael. Well, he asked me if I was going to be at the wedding, and I told him it was only for important people. I thought he knew. Emily cursed under her breath. Mom is my brother. Of course he is invited to my wedding. Oh, good to know. So when you said important people, you referred only to me. I understand. My voice distilled wounded innocence. No, I mean, Mom. Of course you are important. It is just that Emily got stuck, unable to explain why her mother was not important enough for her own wedding. Relax, my love. I got the message. That is why I decided to simplify my life. Yesterday, I spoke with a real estate agent about selling some properties. If you no longer need me as a mother, at least I will not be a financial burden. I let those words penetrate her brain like acid. You're going to sell properties. Which properties? Emily's voice had lost all pretense. Now it was pure financial panic. Well, first the lake house, then the downtown condos. George gave me very good advice yesterday about how to liquidate assets smartly. I mentioned George casually as if it had been a routine conversation. You talked to George, Adrian's brother. Now Emily sounded on the verge of a heart attack. Yes, what a young man, so polite. He explained to me that his family is not going to contribute financially to the wedding, that Adrian told them you and I had everything under control. Dramatic pause. He asked me about my properties. He looked very impressed. Emily hung up without saying goodbye. I knew she was running to call Adrian, probably to ask him what exactly he had said to his family about the economic situation of the Morris family. During the next 3 days, my phone did not stop ringing. It was like watching dominoes fall one by one. First, Michael called, trying to convince me to go to lunch with him and Sarah to clarify things. Then Emily, with a strangely sweet voice, inviting me for coffee to plan the wedding details together. Then Michael again, offering to take me to the doctor because lately I sounded very stressed. But the most revealing call came on Thursday night. It was Jenny, my 16-year-old granddaughter, Michael, and Sarah's daughter. Her voice sounded different, more mature than usual. Grandma, can I come see you tomorrow after school? I need to talk to you. Jenny had always been special, the only one in the family who seemed to inherit my instinct for business and my ability to see through lies. Of course, my love come whenever you want. Jenny was my weakness, the only person in this family who loved me without economic conditions. The next day, Jenny arrived at my house in her school uniform and a serious expression that reminded me of myself at her age. She sat in the kitchen, rejected the juice I offered her, and went straight to the point. Grandma, Mom, and Dad have been talking a lot about you lately, arguing in low voices, closing conversations when I enter the room. Jenny had Robert's eyes, those eyes that did not miss any detail. Mom is obsessed with checking her bank accounts and Dad looks super stressed. And what do you think of all that, my love? I asked her, genuinely curious about the perspective of the only honest person in this family. I think they are scared that you will stop supporting them. Jenny looked directly into my eyes, and I think it was about time. Her words impacted me more than all the desperate calls from her parents. Here was a 16-year-old teenager who understood perfectly the toxic dynamic I had been feeding for years. Grandma, I have been observing this family all my life. I have seen how Dad and Aunt Emily ask you for money constantly, how Mom plans expensive purchases right before visiting you, how everyone acts differently when they need something. Jenny spoke with a maturity that broke my heart. And I have also seen how you give them everything without asking for anything in return. It is what a mother does, Jenny a grandmother. I tried to justify decades of behavior that I already knew was wrong. No, Grandma. A mother teaches her children to be independent. A grandmother loves them but does not turn them into parasites. Jenny took my hands in hers.
Mom told me yesterday that if you sell the properties, we will have to move to a smaller place. As if it were a tragedy that we had to live on the money Dad earns. Jenny's brutal honesty left me speechless. I had raised 2 children who did not know the value of money because they never had to earn it. And now they were raising their own children with the same mentality of entitlement and dependence.
Jenny, did you know that Emily did not invite me to her wedding? I asked her, needing to know how far the family conspiracy went.
Jenny nodded sadly.
Mom told me as if it were something normal. She said Aunt Emily wanted an elegant wedding and that you were not going to fit in. I asked her how she could exclude her own mother, and she told me I did not understand
because I was too young. Jenny squeezed my hands. But I do understand, Grandma. I understand that they are ashamed of you because you are real, because you worked hard, because you do not pretend to be something you are not. In that moment, seeing my granddaughter defend my dignity when my own children trampled on it, I made the final decision. Jenny was the only one who deserved my inheritance, the only one who had inherited my real values. Jenny, I need you to help me with something very important, but it is going to require you to keep some secrets, even from your parents.
My voice had become conspiratorial, businesslike. What do you need?
Grandma Jenny leaned forward, her eyes shining with curiosity. I need you to help me organize a family meeting. I want everyone to be present on Saturday night. Tell them I have something very important to announce about my future. I smiled with a coldness I had not felt in years. And I need you to bring your phone to record everything that is going to happen. Jenny looked at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. Grandma, what are you planning, Justice, my love? After 64 years of life, I am finally going to serve a plate of very cold justice. I took my granddaughter's hands in mine, and you are going to be a witness to how a woman recovers her dignity.
That night, after Jenny left, I sat in my study and finished preparing all the documents, bank transfers, account statements, screenshots of conversations, recordings of calls, everything meticulously organized in folders bearing the name of each of my children. Saturday would be the day the Morris family finally understood who had been controlling the money all this time. Saturday night, everyone arrived at my house exactly at 8, as I had asked. Emily arrived first, elegant and nervous, carrying a bouquet of expensive flowers that she had probably bought with my money. Michael and Sarah arrived 5 minutes later with Jenny walking behind them, her phone discreetly ready in her pocket.
Mom, it is so good you gathered us. We've not had a family dinner in a long time, said Emily, kissing my cheek with those lips that tasted of rehearsed lies. Yes, I needed to talk to all of you about some important decisions I have made, I replied, indicating them to sit in the living room. I had prepared coffee and cookies like in the old days when we were really a family. Sarah settled on the sofa, checking her phone constantly. Michael did not stop touching his watch, nervous. Emily smiled too much. That forced smile she used when she wanted something. Only Jenny seemed calm, sitting in the corner armchair, watching everything with those intelligent eyes that miss no detail.
Well, as you know lately, I have been reflecting a lot on my future, about what will happen to me when I am older. I began serving coffee in the cups Emily had chosen for me last year. And I've also been thinking about you, about your lives, about everything you have achieved.
Emily leaned forward. Mom, you are perfectly fine. You do not need to worry about those things yet. Of course I do, Emily. At my age, one has to be realistic. I took a sip of coffee, savoring the moment.
That is why I have made some very important decisions about my estate.
The silence in the room became thick. Michael stopped touching his watch. Sarah looked up from her phone. Emily kept her smile, but I saw how the muscles in her neck tensed. First, I want to tell you about a very interesting conversation I had with George Adrian's brother. I directed my gaze toward Emily, who went pale instantly.
It turns out he had no idea that you expected financial contribution from his family for the wedding. Mom, that was a misunderstanding. Emily started to speak, but I raised my hand to silence her. Let me finish, my love. George was very interested when I told him about all the properties I own, about how I have been financing my family for years. I smiled sweetly. He found it very generous on my part to support adult children who have professional careers. Michael cleared his throat. Mom, we are not supported. We have jobs' own earnings.
Really, Michael? I took out the first folder of documents I had prepared. According to my records, in the last 5 years, I have transferred $1,200,000 to you. Your salary as a lawyer is $5,000 a month. Without my help, you could not even pay the mortgage on your house. Michael went mute. Sarah looked at him with an expression that mixed panic with reproach. It was obvious she did not know the exact figures of his economic dependence. And you, Emily, I took out the second folder. In the same period, you have received $1.6 million. Your job as an architect allows you to live modestly, but not for the luxury condo downtown, nor for the BMW, nor for the trips to Europe. Emily tried to maintain her composure. Mom, those were loans, investments in our future loans. I laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. Emily, show me a single document where repayment terms are established, a single paper where you acknowledge that you owe me money. Total silence, because those documents did not exist. They had never intended to pay me back anything. But the most interesting part, I continued, is that during all these years in which I have given you millions of dollars, you have decided that I am not good enough to be in your important lives. I took out my phone and played the recording of Emily talking about the wedding. Her own voice filled the room. Of course, I am not going to invite my mother. Imagine what an embarrassment she would be in front of Adrian's family. Emily stood up as if she had been electrocuted. Mom, did you record that conversation? I did not record anything, Emily. You simply forgot to hang up the phone when you were talking to Sarah. I lied with icy tranquility. For 20 minutes, I listened to how you talked about me as if I were a shameful nuisance. Michael tried to mediate. Emily, is that true? Did you seriously say those things? It is not what it seems.
I was stressed, worried about the wedding. Emily stuttered, losing all her studied elegance. You were worried about looking bad to your boyfriend's family. A family that, by the way, is not contributing a dime to your $80,000 wedding. My voice had become cutting business like a wedding that I am going to finance completely, but to which I am not invited. Sarah finally spoke with a small and nervous voice. Mother-in-law, there must be an explanation. The explanation is very simple, Sarah. My children have lived like millionaires with my money, but are ashamed of the woman who works to give it to them. I stood up, feeling an energy I had not experienced in years. That is why I have made definitive decisions about my future and yours.
Effective immediately, all credit cards in your name are canceled. All monthly transfers are suspended permanently. All properties in your names returned to my legal control.
My voice was firm, like steel, each word calculated for maximum impact. Emily jumped from her seat. Mom, you cannot do that. I have commitment scheduled payments. Of course I can, Emily. They are my cards, my money, my properties. I only put them in your name for tax convenience, but legally they remain mine. I took out a folder full of legal documents. William already prepared all the paperwork. It goes into effect tomorrow, Monday. Michael looked devastated. Mom, we have a mortgage, Jenny's expenses, the life we have built, the life I built for you, Michael, with my work, my money, my sacrifice. I walked toward him with icy calm. And now you are going to learn to build your own life with your own resources. Sarah was crying silently. Emily paced back and forth like a caged beast. Michael had his head in his hands. Only Jenny remained serene, recording everything discreetly. This is emotional blackmail, screamed Emily. You are punishing us for a private conversation. Emotional blackmail. My laugh came out cold and sharp. Emily, you plan to get married with my money at a party to which I am not invited, and I am the blackmailer. Adrian is going to cancel everything. His family is going to think we are scammers. Emily was completely losing control. Maybe you should have thought about that before calling me an embarrassment in front of that same family. I sat down calmly, enjoying seeing her crumble. But do not worry, Emily. I have a proposal. Everyone looked at me with desperate hope. You can keep the money for the wedding, the $80,000 you asked for, but with one condition. I sit at the main table. You introduce me proudly as your hard-working mother who financed your entire education, and you publicly thank the woman who made your life of luxury possible. Emily palled. I cannot do that. Adrian's family, then there is no money, and without money, there is no wedding. I shrugged. You decide what is more important, your fake image or your marriage. Michael tried a last plea. Mom, think about it carefully. We are your family, your only children. My only children who are ashamed of me, who lie to me, who use me as an ATM. I stood up and walked toward Jenny. But I am not completely cruel. Jenny is not to blame for having parasitic parents. I put my hand on my granddaughter's shoulder. Jenny, you remain my universal beneficiary. When I die, everything will be yours. But when you turn 18, you will also have access to an educational fund I have created specifically for you. Jenny hugged me tightly. Thank you, Grandma. But I just want you to be happy. I am going to be happy, my love, for the first time in years. I looked at my children, who watched me with a mixture of shock and despair. I am moving next week. I bought a beautiful apartment upstate near the lake. Jenny can visit me whenever she wants. You are moving. Michael looked lost. In this house, I am selling it. I already have a buyer. I smiled with genuine satisfaction. A young couple who is going to turn it into a home full of true love. Emily collapsed on the sofa. Mom, you cannot destroy our family like this. I did not destroy anything, Emily. You destroyed this family when you decided that my money was more valuable
Than my presence. I headed for the door. The meeting is over. You have until Wednesday to collect your things from my house. 3 months later, I was sitting on the terrace of my new apartment, drinking coffee while watching the sunrise over the lake. Jenny came to visit me every weekend, telling me about her college plans, her dreams of
studying business administration. She was the only one who had inherited my entrepreneurial spirit. Emily canceled the wedding. Adrian left her when he found out the whole truth about her economic situation.
Michael and Sarah had to sell the house and move to a small apartment. Both got part-time jobs to survive. They never asked for my forgiveness. They never acknowledged their mistake, but they also never asked me for money again. I found peace in the silence. In the mornings by the lake, in the afternoons reading books I did not have time to enjoy for years. In the nights planning Jenny's business future, I had learned the most important lesson of my life. That true love is not bought with money, and that dignity has no price. My children chose money over love. I chose my peace over their parasitism, and I never, ever looked back. 2 years after that night that changed everything, I received an unexpected call. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was watering my plants on the terrace when the phone rang. The name that appeared on the screen surprised me. Michael. Hi, Mom. His voice sounded different, more mature, tired. I know I have no right to call you after so much time, but I needed to talk to you. I sat in my favorite chair, the one I had bought with my own savings, without asking anyone's opinion. Tell me, Michael, Mom, Sarah, and we are getting divorced. His voice broke slightly. It turns out that when your money ran out, she realized she did not love the man I really am, but the lifestyle you gave us. I felt neither satisfaction nor sadness, just a kind of cosmic inevitability.
I am sorry, Michael. You are not sorry, Mom, and you are right not to feel it. Michael made a long pause. These 2 years have been the hardest of my life, but also the most honest. For the first time in decades, I had to face who I really am without your money as a shield. I heard the background noise of a coffee shop. Michael was in some public place, probably gathering courage for this call for hours. And who are you, Michael? I asked with genuine curiosity.
I am a mediocre lawyer who for years felt entitled to his mother's money. I am a father who taught his daughter that money is asked for, not earned. I am a man who was ashamed of the hardest working woman he knows. His voice trembled. I am a coward who let his sister mistreat you because it suited me economically. His words were like knives, but knives that finally cut in the right direction. Mom, I am not calling to ask you for money. I am not calling to ask for forgiveness because I know I do not deserve it. I am calling to tell you that I finally understand what you did to us. Michael breathed deeply. You forced us to grow up. I remained silent, processing his words. Outside, an elderly couple walked hand in hand around the lake. I had been watching them do the same walk every afternoon for 2 years, and I always wondered if that was what true love looked like. Michael, how is Jenny? It was the question that really mattered to me. Jenny is incredible. She got a perfect GPA this semester. She got a part-time job at an accounting firm. She says she wants to learn the value of money before inheriting yours. Michael laughed, but it was not a bitter laugh. She is identical to you, Mom. She has that determination, that intelligence for business. And Emily? I asked, although I was not sure I wanted to know the answer. Emily. Michael sighed. Emily is working at a small architecture firm. She lives in a modest apartment. She drives a used car. She looks real for the first time in years. But she is also furious. Furious with you. Furious with me. Furious with the world. Furious why? Because she discovered that all the important contacts she thought she had were actually contacts of your money. When the expensive dinners and costly gifts ended, the fake friendships also ended. Michael paused. Adrienne married an A's 6 months after leaving her. I got up from my chair and walked to the terrace railing. The sun was starting to set, painting the lake in gold. It was a spectacle I never got tired of watching. Michael, why are you telling me all this? Because I want you to know that your plan worked. You broke us to rebuild us. And although Emily still does not understand it, I do. His voice had become firm. I want you to know that I am learning to be a better man. And Sarah, how is she handling the divorce? Michael laughed bitterly. Sarah already has a new boyfriend, an older businessman who supports her just like I supported her with your money. Some never learn. We remained in silence for several minutes. I watching the sunset. He probably looking at his cold coffee in some anonymous coffee shop. Mom, there is something else I need to tell you. Michael breathed deeply. The day you turned 66, Jenny asked me why we did not call to congratulate you. I did not know what to answer her. My birthday had passed in silence.
Only with Jenny, who came to visit me with a homemade cake and a handmade card. It had been perfect. I did not need calls, Michael. Yes, you needed them, Mom, and we needed to make them, but we were too proud, too wounded in our ego to admit that we missed you. Michael stayed silent for a moment. I missed you not as an ATM, but as a mother.
I felt something wet on my cheeks and realized I was crying. Not from sadness, but from something more complex. Maybe relief, maybe hope. Michael, what do you expect from this call? Nothing. Mom, absolutely nothing. I just wanted you to know that the man you raised still exists underneath all the garbage I accumulated on top. His voice broke again, and I wanted you to know that I am proud to be the son of Julia Morris, the woman who built an empire with her own hands. I hung up the phone and stood there watching the last lights of the day fade over the water.
For the first time in 2 years, I felt something resembling hope about my family. Maybe true love is not bought with money, but sometimes it is found in the silence that remains when the money runs.